Welcome to the Rebelcast, episode 35. We have news to get to regarding Covert Go Blue. State of Magic today, as Karlov Manor is just released. And one big topic that we'll discuss at the very end. What is the community saying? Where are the winds blowing? I'm here to give you the news and break down my thoughts on how it affects the MTG community and the direction of the game. Join me. My first story regards the future of one of our best known streamers in the game today, Covert Go Blue. In a video last week to his viewers, CGB announced his future departure from Best of One Magic content. Now, in the video, CGB went over his reasons and in a very candid, honest tone described his frustration with being pigeonholed into that content niche. Now, as a content creator, I find myself empathizing with those feelings. One of the reasons many content creators eventually quit is actually burnout from an audience that insists they continue to fulfill that one content itch. I will not be surprised if this happens soon, as CGB has been known to enjoy Brawl actually much more. Or will he leave MTG altogether? Maybe take a break like he's done in the past. Time will tell. However, fans, don't fret. There are actually plenty of great Best of One streamers to watch that can fill that void. And I don't even mean people that are Rebellion affiliated. I recently participated in a streamer kumite with many of these great guys. And I can't recommend their content enough. Brewlab, Ace MTG, Mythic Mike. These guys were awesome to play and talk to about content creation. It was really cool to network with these guys. I'll go ahead and leave links to that series of videos, the Streamer Kumite, and to some of those creators I had the pleasure of working with and playing with down in the description. Our second bit of news is the release of Murders at Karlov Manor itself. Now, the new set is out, and it's already having an impact on what people are playing in RCQs and standard events. Control decks are back, especially in standard, with new pieces for Bant and Azorius. The new hot aggro deck, Boros Convoke, also gets a boost from some new cards like Novice Inspector, Case of the Getaway Express. For details on these decks and more, be sure to watch the latest episode of the Stay of the Meta. It was certainly action-packed, and we tracked the most decks in one episode ever. I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description to that as well. Now let's discuss our main topic. Oh boy, I hope I can strike a nuance with this issue. I have noticed a pattern of behavior from some hybrid creators, as we'll call them. MTG creators that make content for both casual and competitive Magic. I'm not going to bore you with a narrative, this tired old one, but it's really no secret that our community has been split in recent times between those who see the game as more casual in nature and those who still just want to compete. The people who see it as casual tend to see it as a social event. It's the way that they describe the game. These folks typically only play EDH. Typically see the game more or less as a bit of a lifestyle brand. And there's nothing wrong with that. Many influencers work this sphere of the community, and there are those who actually dabble in both. I'm friends with many of those people. I've been open to collaboration with these sorts of creators for a long time now, actually. However, recently, I've noticed a pattern of behavior. Questions have arisen in week 1 of Karlov Manor Standard whether the set is too weak. Whether standard revitalization is really where Wizards should be focusing its resources. According to some creators, Ali Eldrazi for one, recently on Twitter, standard content is made stale by the focus on the format. And I'll go ahead and directly quote him. He says, "Longer rotation for standard is not fun, especially for content creation. It's boring and makes new sets less exciting with less impact. Also makes Sheltered $90, especially with the qualifiers being standard." End quote. I won't name anyone else. I'm really not here to start interpersonal drama or conflict between creators. What I want to say, though, is he certainly wasn't the only one. Other influencers in recent days, especially after the release of Karlov Manor, were asking the same question or similar. Does the 3-year rotation make standard stale? Is it stale content for viewers? Welcome back. Magic the Gathering weaves itself in and out of players' lives. It's quite common for players to leave the game for years at a time and return much later. That happened to me. I left and returned to Magic several times throughout my life. However, it was the return in 2019 that was so significantly different that I had to not only purchase booster packs again, but also join in the digital space and try for what everyone else wanted to try for, what the digital version of Magic advertised, to begin to compete for glory. What Arena promised was a chance to be known. Many of you can remember or recall the first commercial for MTG Arena. The same glory that MTG promised us as kids. My story is much like that of many others in that I find myself now absorbed into the MTG community in a way that is unprecedented in MTG's history. From conventions to cosplay to influencers to a flourishing casual commander scene, the game is very different from how I remember it as a kid and a teen, and then a college student on a budget. But beyond all those changes and shifts to a lifestyle and not just a game on the shelf among many other games, like kind of like how it was for me at Game Corner in LaGrange, Georgia growing up. Beyond all that, we now make content and actually participate as leaders of the MTG community. But what started that? For me, it was actually watching Covert Go Blue, amongst a myriad of other exciting, new at the time, content creators that were trying to stretch the limits of what you could pull off in best of one arena combat. We had Mono Black Magic, sort of acted like the weird uncle, telling jokes, making comedy out of it, providing laughs, and showing off an uncanny ability to really find the most broken combos. Legend VD in his early days also astounded me. All these guys were my first contact with digital magic. It wasn't long before I put down my trade binders and started down the path of best of one streaming on Arena. That was 2021. Since then, I've hitched my trailer to the big rig known as the MTG Rebellion. And even though we're only a year old, we've come a long way in really such a short time. My love for best of three competitive magic has really been lit by Darth Rickness and my partnership with him, the great guys and gals in our small community, our Discord. But without that initial spark of joy from watching those early creators, I really couldn't be here today. Though I am a champion for the best of three tournament magic, and I'll always champion standard as the flagship format full of possibilities, I was initially inspired by the likes of the best of one magicians. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, it's because I'm keenly aware that many know the majority of content creators have given up competitive magic and the possibility of making content there for the much more viewer friendly casual sphere. Does this make them instantly enemies of competitive magic? Hell no. Many of my contacts and friends play and enjoy EDH and enjoy EDH content regularly. The issue becomes that some of these creators play this game. Well, they'll take pot shots at us from a distance. They'll ask questions in such a slight way, nudging along specific narratives. Folks, the reason you probably haven't heard what I'm talking about is because it's so absurdly wrong and absurdly obvious. I'll refer back to the article from Hipsters of the Coast that we broke down last year on an earlier episode, and rest in peace to the website, by the way. They really had some great content. But everyone can tell when they look at influencers making these comments, and they can see it's really just influencers getting nervous over their own content niche. The overwhelming response, despite the negativity towards Standard, towards Karlov Manor from these influencers, from the community, is that, especially the paper community, is that Standard is back. Do y'all really need the proof? Go take a look at our latest State of the Meta for week 1. We actually tracked the highest number of decks yet in one episode. I'm dead serious. It was fantastic, and I thoroughly enjoy a meta where brewers are having just as much figuring this shit out as everyone else. So then we ask, why try to influence the narrative in such a way that makes a competitive scene seem toxic, stale, unfun? Why try to lead your audience in a direction where they come away with a perception that Standard is not worth investing in? That you will only find frustration, apathy, not glory. I bring all this up to say that we should really go and see for ourselves If Standard really isn't worth revitalizing, then what's with all the people flocking back to the competitive scene? Why does Wizards, despite years of benefiting from creating more and more EDH product, now understand what's at stake for us? For me personally, a shot at the glory I was denied growing up. See, I never got to compete at a high level the way that Darth Rictus often reminisces about. For me, this is my shot. For the MTG community, it's bringing back the format that started it all for many of us and still provides that possibility now for so many kids. Magic has changed, but so has everything else. We're in a time now where information on decks is highly accessible. Information on how to pilot, how to sideboard, how to play optimally, how to find patterns, how to sequence correctly like a pro. It's so much more possible for each of you than it was for me, especially when I was a kid with just a gleam in my eye. This is actually why we started the Rebellion, to foster the hope like a small flame kindling into something great. So, y'all, don't buy the bullshit. Standard isn't stale. Competitive Magic can both be fun and inviting. And if we keep the spirit of teaching alive, if we take the time to coach each other, play test, learn from each other and our mistakes, we each actually have a better shot at glory. The best we've ever had. Look, it's okay to disagree. And if you think I'm off base here, I'd really be happy to hash it out with you in the comments. So go ahead, leave me a comment. I invite you to, and really let me know what you think. I really want to know. And if your comment is dense enough, if it creates enough discussion, we'll go ahead and put it up on the next episode for the team to react to. But until then, let's get after it, Rebels. Until next time, untap, upkeep, resist.